have resisted the idea of allowing our borders to be dismantled. We have retained some sort of border control, but even then they're getting in by the hundreds of thousands every year, even into the UK. And there's no doubt that our systems can't cope. We are all dangerously near to national level bankruptcy because the governments have been borrowing too much.
And isn't that the Cloward and Piven endgame, is just bring in as many people as you can, bankrupt the system into total socialism?
I think there is a very large element of let's give up and let us force totalitarianism on the people by making any other option just seem so dreadful, so that they beg to have so-called security, which in effect means losing their freedom. And that, I'm sure, is the totalitarian's game. Of course, one of the things that is interesting is that the left, which is the modern-day expression of totalitarianism, the National Socialists in Germany, followed by the Communist Socialists, now the Environmentalist Socialists. These are the three main groups of socialism. They have all killed tens of millions. The Environmentalist Socialists, after all, had the ban on DDT put in place when it was just on the point of extinguishing malaria from the world, and the numbers of people who were dying of malaria had been reduced to 50,000 a year worldwide. It's now closer to 1 million a year. It's been like that for the 40 years ever since they banned DDT. So that the environmental left have got blood on their hands just as much as the Nazis and the communists, who were their predecessors, had on their hands. And there is no doubt that the alliance, and it's becoming a more and more explicit alliance between the hard left and Islam movement, is very, very dangerous.
You're right. A sickening alliance between the hard left that wants to wreck the West and radical Islam that wants to wreck it. In their shared hatred, they are brothers. Lord Monkton, we've got to go to break. Stay right there. We'll come back to you on the other side to get into this very important UN conference that is coming up. Stay with us, Infowars.com. Lord Monkton leaves us here in about 25 minutes. I know we got loaded phones. If folks want to hold, I'm going to get to you in the next hour. We have open phones in the next hour and a lot of other news I haven't gotten to. If not, you can hang up or call back. The number to join us is 800-259-9231. But I will try to go to some of these calls while Lord Monkton's with us, because it's also on the topic of globalism, open borders, forcing cultures to integrate into each other while governments play the part of referees in a larger, great game of divide and conquer. But before we go any further, one of the most popular, if not the most popular product we've ever put out is back in stock. Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2, the good halogen that so many people are deficient in, is our overall bestseller. Then Super Male Vitality. But Deep Cleanse is one of our newer products. In the last year, we've produced it twice. But it's so hard to get the Himalayan Shilajit, that is thousands of different plant compounds that form a natural oil in the glacial mountains and then excretes in the summer. It's so hard to get truly organic Shilajit that we only come out with this a few times a year. We have a limited run. It is concentrated Shilajit and then a whole bunch of other known compounds as well. Deep Cleanse is back, and it's got incredible 5-star reviews from third-party sites like Power Reviews. Jack in Western New York says, since I've started using this product, I'm feeling much better than before. My family also uses it with excellent results. Thank you. That's a 5-star review. Here's another one, 65 years young, Central Texas. I am grateful for this product. I feel much healthier for using this great product. Thank you for your support. Deep Cleanse is back in right now at InfoWarsLife.com, or simply call toll-free 888-253-3139. Also, Knockout is one of the products we put out that is one of the best deals, best products you're going to find anywhere. Leading competitors with the same dose of melatonin at stores, same number of caplets, same amount of melatonin, cost $19.95, $16.95, you name it. It's $16.95 right now on sale with 8 other compounds: organic L-tryptophan, organic valerian root. The list goes on and on. So you'd have to buy 9 bottles of different things to have what is in one bottle of this. And it's the regular recommended dose in here. A good, healthy dose of each gives me the best sleep ever. I don't have to take it every night, but some nights I do take it if I'm kind of wound up, had too much coffee. I kind of get in a manic phase. Knockout does the job. And speaking of brain pills, we've got Brain Force that's got all the known compounds to boost clarity, focus, you name it. And your purchases of these products make all this possible. So it's a win-win. Get high-quality products, fund the tip of the spear in the fight for human liberty, InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll-free 888-253-3139. And we have a whole bunch of Made in America T-shirts. We do limited editions a few times a year. Hillary for Prison. On the back it says, Legalize Freedom, Infowars.com. Great conversation starter. Great way to spread the word. Great way to expose the criminality of Benghazi and the IRS persecution and Fast and Furious and so much more. It's only $19.95. It's limited edition. We've done the final run. It's coming in next week. We just ordered more of these to be produced, and then that's it. We will never make this shirt again. And your purchase, again, makes this transmission possible. So get your collectible limited edition Hillary for Prison shirt at InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. Now, Lord Monkton, I want to finish up here on the Putin situation, then get into the global treaty.
Yeah.
Here is a clip of Putin, not just the article, where a few days ago he said a lot of the G20 countries being attacked by terrorists have actually been involved supporting ISIS. Let's go to that clip.
The reporter asked Putin, as far as I understand, one of the central themes during the summit has become the fight against terrorism. And it is evident that we cannot have an effective war on terrorism without the fight against the ones who finance the terrorists. Has there been any discussion during the summit of any specific ways to do so? What were the points of the discussion, and were there any decisions reached?
Yes, of course. This was one of the key subjects, the war on terrorism. Especially after the tragic events of hostage-taking and deaths of people in Paris. And of course, we all understand and spoke about this, that it is necessary to cut the finance routes to the terrorist organizations. I provided examples based on our data on the financing of different Islamic State units by private individuals. This money, as we have established, comes from 40 countries, and there are some of the G20 members among them.
All right, now that's more truth from Putin. Again, I'm not some Russia worshiper here, but he's attacking ISIS. He's saying global warming is a concerted fraud to bankrupt nation states and impoverish people and selectively enforce feudalism, to read his full quotes. It sounds like he's been listening to Lord Monkton. How big a deal is it to have Vladimir Putin come out when he's going to be one of the main people at this UN conference that starts in 12 days in Paris? How big a deal is that, Lord Monkton?
I don't think one can really underestimate the significance of this. It's very, very important. And I'll tell you a bit of history. Back in 2004, Putin asked one of his scientific advisors, in fact, his chief scientific advisor at the time, Dr. Andrei Illarionov, whom I know, whether global warming was a problem or not, and could he please find out by holding an international conference of experts at the Kremlin. So what Illarionov did, he looked around the world and he found the country throughout the world that was the most true-believing country in this whole rubbish as far as the governing class was concerned. And that country, of course, was the United Kingdom. And so he invited Sir David King, then the government's chief scientist, and now its chief negotiator at the Paris summit on the climate question. And in fact, I was in Cambridge yesterday to hear Sir David King give a talk at the mathematics department, and a lot of rubbish he talked as well. But what was significant about this 2004 conference was that Illarionov also invited skeptics. Now, at that time, he didn't know of me, and I wasn't really a skeptic at that time. I hadn't looked at the science, and when I did, I became a skeptic. But he invited noted skeptics from all around the world. And when Sir David King arrived at Sheremetyevo Airport, and he found various skeptics getting off planes from all over the place. and heading off to the government cars, he turned round and tried to get back into the British plane and go back to the UK, because he is entirely incapable of debating this issue. I know, because I've debated it with him before, and his blood was all over the floor at the end of it. And so he was pretty much arrested by the FSB and made to go to the Kremlin, where he was made to give his presentation. And towards the end of it, Dr. Roy Spencer, who keeps the satellite temperature records that show no global warming now for 18 years, 6 months, 18 years, 9 months, got up and said, "Oh, for heaven's sake, Sir David, you're talking complete rubbish about this particular point. The facts are as follows." And King, who is completely incapable of taking any criticism or arguing any point on climate science, because he doesn't know any, he knows the party line, but that's all he knows, flounced out, and the FSB made to stop him. And Illarionov went up to the lectern and just waved them aside and said, "No, let him go, because Sir David King has disgraced the name of Britain, disgraced the name of science, disgraced the name of King, and disgraced the name of knighthood." He said, one thing he has done, though, is he has told us just what rubbish the official case in support of the global warming alarm is, and the view that I think the Russian Academy of Sciences will take is a skeptical one, because the skeptics here have been willing to put their point forward in debate, willing to be challenged by the other side, and have met those challenges well. Now, I know this happened because I have spoken to Illarionov himself about it, as well as to several others who were there. And 6 months later, Putin told Illarionov that the Russian Academy must change its mind on this question, because he had done a deal with Tony Blair, again in Britain, by which Tony Blair would get Russia most favored nation status at the World Trade Organization, allowing tariff walls to come tumbling down and Russia to trade more freely with the rest of the world, provided that Russia changed its tune and gave in to Tony Blair on the global warming question. And the significance of Putin now realizing he can no longer maintain that agreement he reached with Tony Blair is that Putin, who is very hard-headed and very clear about what Russia's interest is and isn't, has now realized that he has less of an interest in selling overpriced gas via the pipelines into Europe at 4 times the world price, which he does at the moment. He has less of an interest in maintaining that than in stopping the worldwide economic damage that is being done by this ludicrous global warming nonsense. So I think it's extremely healthy and very encouraging that at last the leader of a major nation has come out openly and said, "Look, folks, this is rubbish."
I hate to say it, but on so many fronts, Russia is heroically fighting ISIS for real. Russia is exposing global carbon taxes as an enslavement mechanism, a military economic takeover. Russia is trying to deploy all sorts of new technologies in the third world. I mean, I know Russia's been through the whole Marxist nightmare for 80 years and now is trying to struggle out of it, but you're a well-traveled man and all over the world. In your analysis, what is the power makeup of the world? We know it's been the Anglo-American establishment, the UK, the US, with Europe kind of in the middle, Russia and China. But now if you pull back, what would you say if it's a unipolar, a bipolar, a tripolar? What is the makeup of the world?
Very good question.
Or is it collectivist on one end and free marketers on the other? Go ahead.
The central divide in politics, which was first meditated upon by the Chinese philosophers in the early Chinese Empire, at the time of Confucius, was indeed between the libertarians and the totalitarians, the division that you yourself have just spoken of, and that remains the division today. But when you get somebody like Putin coming along, what he does is to do what the old Foreign Office hand who taught me geopolitics, a wonderful man called Tom Greenwell, who was the chief leader writer of the Yorkshire Post, and I was his deputy. We would go drinking together, and he would teach me all this. He said the first duty of anyone in the Foreign Office is to uphold the national interest of Britain and ask the question, what's in it for us? Now, Putin, in every one of the things you've just described that he does, is upholding Russia's national interest, which in many respects coincides with the global interest, though it doesn't coincide with the global totalitarian interest. And this is very interesting.
So they're not going along with the parasitic, centralized, crony capitalist, centralized fraud system. So what's good for Russia is good for the rest of the world as well.
That's right, because Russia, curiously, through an authoritarian and very vigorous president, is actually becoming libertarian.